Can't help but just start by acknowledging all that I heard my colleagues say, especially Emily, just right now. That what I hear that's new for me in working in a school is how the social emotional well-being of each child is forefront. It's not just an add-on. It's not just an extra class. It's not just something Kristin takes care of. It's something that lives in the classroom. And this has like been this inspiring discovery for me, being in a Waldorf environment for the first time, and also an identity crisis of like, so what do I do? And so I think that's just been very alive for me and the people who I'm so fortunate that, you know, they put up with me. But I think how that my role as counselor, the first school counselor at this school, is showing up at the upper school. At its core is being available for students on an individual level. I think in adolescence we're seeing a move, and you know this if you're familiar with Waldorf pedagogy. There's a shift happening in independence, in stressors and experience, internal and external, once a child reaches middle and high school. And I found that based on the research I've been doing about how other Waldorf schools support their students in middle and high school, what I'm offering is really a deeper holding, a firmer holding of a student when they're experiencing crisis or ongoing challenges or stressors that feel exacerbated for whatever reason. So that means I do a lot of collaborating in my job. So while one of the pillars of my role and my training is confidentiality, I have had to work with that confidentiality in a way that makes student challenge and student needs really come alive for my colleagues. And that's been really easy to do, because I feel the teachers and the adults I work with are already so in touch with what a student is dealing with, while they may not be aware of exactly what they're holding that's making it feel so difficult. So in that sense, I feel I've been a good support to the students, families, and colleagues in just adding like another option for students. Sometimes, so my work I already mentioned is highly individualized at the upper school level, working with middle and high school students. It also involves working with teachers to create what we're kind of calling support plans this year. So rolling out behavior plans, long-term success plans that include academic supports that we're kind of presenting to a student and their teachers. And a lot of that includes work with me, and a lot of that includes work with classes, whole classes. Sometimes I'll attend class meetings. I hold the 11th grade class meeting once a week. So there's a lot of not just therapeutic work happening in my direct work with students, but a lot of it is problem solving. A lot of it is resolving like just general social issues and talking about ways to, I have such dry mouth because I'm nervous. I'm just gonna have some tea. Anyway, I could talk about this all day. So I really see the difference between what I'm bringing and what was here before I got here as a firmer holding. So there's a different coalescence that's happening around a child. I would say when I'm here at Bostwick on Thursdays and Fridays when I'm not teaching Unbound, typically students are dropping in because they have a regularly scheduled counseling meeting with me that could be weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. Or more often in the upper school than the lower school, it's I just can't engage. Like I'm really struggling with a peer. I can't focus because I'm focused on this thing from home. I'm so nervous that I didn't do well on this paper. And so acute need that doesn't rely on regular intervention. So check-ins, like drop-ins. And I'm still figuring out a way to communicate effectively with my colleagues when students kind of sneak away into the basement to find my office. But more often than not, I think what follows that meeting with the student is me finding a way that works with the student for me to communicate what they're experiencing and what they're dealing with their teachers, with their family, and make a plan of action. So one thing that I was wanting to bring to you, and somebody check me on time if I'm starting to go over, is a skill, a curriculum that I've been trained in. Many of you may be familiar with dialectical behavior therapy, or DBT. I have a lot of training in DBT, and a few years ago took a training on how to bring it to students directly in schools, not as a form of therapy, but as a skill building opportunity or curriculum. I like this distinction between long-form therapy, which is not what I do with students at the school. I do short-term intervention, crisis management, and just teamwork behind the scenes, so more like implicit support in that way. But DBT was adapted to become a skill building curriculum where you use like high specificity to address common areas of stressors in adolescents' lives. So you typically, DBT encompasses 4 different modules. So it covers emotion regulation, interpersonal effectiveness, so managing relationships while still having self-respect and having good relationships, mindfulness skills, so how to control and be in control of your attention, and then distress tolerance, which is kind of the hot one right now because of the nature of my work. It's also January, and there's going to be a full moon soon, so high on the distress tolerance right now, which is really learning to endure distressful emotion and get through the moment so that you can rely on skills that feel more natural, like emotion regulation or mindfulness skills and effective communication. So distress tolerance right now is the module I am pulling the most from in my work with students. Sometimes that's on the spot. I think you need this so that you can get back to class, or I think you need this because we need to see if you can make it through the rest of the day. Or I think you need this because we can't have a conversation, right? You're not ready to have a conversation, so let's get you to a place where you feel grounded, regulated, and ready, open for communication. So the distress tolerance module, which if you teach it as a school-wide curriculum, can take anywhere from like 2 to 4 months to cover. So I pull a couple of specific lessons, most commonly with students. So if I'm pulling from recent memory, like today, you can look at handout 8.1, and I put some of the blank handouts on the tables in front of you. So within the distress tolerance module, there are 9 different skills that I would hope to teach a student, or the curriculum intends to teach a student. 5 of those relate to crisis survival skills, and not actual crisis survival skills. And maybe that's the point. And the other 4 have to do with radical acceptance. And so the 2 that I wanted just to give you a quick glimpse of tonight, these are actual handouts that I actually give to students and actually work through with them in a meeting. The TIP skill is handout 8.1, which is a skill that stands for their distress tolerance skills, like needed to reduce your heart rate and just reduce arousal in general when a student is experiencing elevated emotion and unable to engage in learning, and is feeling like they can't focus or they're so upset. Typically the things that I'm seeing students upset about are the classic ones students at not Waldorf schools experience on a day-to-day basis. So especially at the upper school, things like peer conflict and difficulty in friendships, navigating friendships, social perception, body image, family communication, academic challenges. Those feel like the heavy hitters. A lot of peer conflict resolution at the upper school. And so these skills I would use a tip skill or teach a tip skill to a student in a moment where they were feeling like they had an urge to act impulsively, whether that was like send an angry text to someone or rat someone out randomly, or overeat, or rip up a homework assignment that they just finished and aren't that proud of because it wasn't a perfect score. And I'm teaching them skills to get them to a place where they can make a more clear and regulated decision, or actually be open to receiving help. So a tip skill relies on basically activating the body's parasympathetic nervous system. So you're tricking your body into calming down. So you use extreme temperature changes. So like it's very easy now that I live in Vermont, especially in January, to just walk outside. Students love eating in the snow and putting their faces in the snow. I often urge students to dunk their face in the snow or rub snow onto their wrists or under their eyes. It's just a surefire way to make your body basically distracted and like redirect blood flow to the heart to calm down your breathing. The other thing I'll do is, if students are willing, which is much less likely at the upper school, is to go for like a jog to get their heart rate up. So getting them out of my space is sometimes difficult, but I try to encourage movement and like increased heart rate. The other one is paced breathing. I use that every day with students at our school. So I'll leave it there. So you get an example. I start every DBT session with a student with a quick grounding exercise and breathing exercise or mindfulness moment. Then I'll review if we had a previous session where we covered a skill. I'll review how successful they thought they were. Typically there's a homework assignment, so you can see the homework assignment for learning the tip skills on the back. And it's not homework, it's did you use the skill? Could you have used the skill? When you didn't, how did that go? How were the outcomes? Were they exactly what you were hoping for? Were they different? How would you do it differently next time? So that's the tip skill, one of my favorites. And I think I also brought the pros and cons. Yeah, thanks. I think I have it right here. This is an awesome one that I personally benefited from, so I'm giving you a freebie. This is a pros and cons list, but DBT style. So you're making the you're identifying the pros and cons of doing something, like so following through on an impulsive urge or desire to act that you're experiencing, and the pros and cons of choosing not to act. I think it just brings more mindfulness to the kind of choice that the student is facing. And this, I've found, this skill in particular, it's helpful to have a pre-existing relationship with the student. So if I understand what their goals are socially, what their goals are maybe in communication with certain family members, what grade they have in mind they want to get, how much work they want to invest newly in a class. These are things that I'll try to identify and tie in to developing the pros and cons and identifying what actually matters to students. I find that that is a common thread, just to kind of pull back from the DBT skill in particular. Getting students present to what their commitments are and what they care about is really just what I do every day, or what I hope to do. There's still a lot to discover about my role and what it means for this school to have a school counselor, and I've been just so excited to be in those conversations because everyone's very creative, and I find this like a very creative role. And I have a lot of excitement for it. And I'm wondering if you have any questions for me about how that is kind of unfolding, and anything I quickly and hurriedly and dryly talked about tonight.
Well, I could just reflect on, as a teacher coming in, not spending as much time with the students. Maybe I spend 3 hours a week or something with them. To read the strategic plans, what did you call it?
Support plans.
Support plans has been really helpful. It's really helpful. It's a way to understand what the best way to support someone that I'm getting to know. So that's been really helpful to read about.
Thanks, Emily. Yeah, I think I could just add that one of the goals of those plans is to really not standardize, but make other teachers aware of strategies that have been effective and for them in their class with that particular student. So that's not really an issue at the lower school with this class teacher model, but as we move into the upper grades, and especially the high school, I find it can be really helpful to just put effective strategies on a document and talk about it, and just encourage those skills or strategies to be used for this particular child.
Can I move to the science lab and then I promise to the questions at the end?
Got it.
What we remember.
I think I can.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks,
so much.
Emily.
Thank you.